What if it never goes away?
We'll figure it out together, I promise you.
Minneapolis, midnight. Streets locked in ice. A brilliant CEO rides past dark windows, success gone cold, until he spots an 11-year-old guarding an empty thermos at a buried bus stop. "My mom needs soup," the boy whispers. A metal keychain falls. Its serial number is his data center's. Breath fogs, guilt bites. If he follows that number tonight, can he warm more than one home, or is he already too late? Minneapolis lay locked in white silence, the kind that swallows sound and makes a city feel like a photograph. Plows groaned far off. Streetlights wore halos of frost. In the back of a black sedan, Evan Hale sat upright, shoulders squared beneath a tailored Italian suit, a crisp white shirt, a muted silk tie. His high-end glasses fogged with each exhale, then cleared. He rubbed the hinge of the frames, almost absently, then turned to the window and watched snow whip against the glass like torn paper. "Main route's passable," the driver said, voice tight. "We can be at the tower in 12. Evan nodded, then didn't. The weight in his chest pressed harder than the winter air. On the seat beside him lay a metal keychain, cool and familiar, engraved with a serial number from a maintenance tag. He turned it in his palm, listening to the faint tap against his wedding band finger, now bare. A habit he had not broken. He breathed in slowly, deliberately, as if coaxing warmth from the breath itself. The car eased past shuttered stores and a row of dark apartment windows sealed with plastic. A figure crossed the sidewalk, pushing a grocery cart filled with blankets. Evan's gaze followed until the taillights pulled him forward again. "Turn off the main route," he said quietly. "Sir?" "Take me somewhere different," he murmured, almost apologetically. "Avoid the River Drive. Cut through the old warehouse district. I want to see the city as it is tonight." The driver glanced in the mirror. A few beats of hesitation, then the blinker clicked. The sedan slipped onto side streets layered in powder, the tires whispering over ice. Evan kept the keychain in hand, the cold metal anchoring him. He had built an empire of signal and pattern, an AI that mapped heat loss, predicted shelter demand, routed meals and fuel when storms hit hard. The dashboards dazzled. The press applauded. And yet, under the glass of those dashboards, he felt something raw and unfinished. A digital billboard flashed blue against the snow. City advisory. Wind chills dangerous. Seek immediate shelter. He pictured an engineer's slide deck from that afternoon. Success metrics, adoption curves, a promise graph that bent upward toward certainty. He should have felt proud. Instead, a memory pressed in. A tiny hospital room, fluorescent lights humming, a woman's hand slipping from his. A marriage that had cracked under the quiet pressure of ambition. A daughter who, at bedtime, asked him if smart maps could find lonely people. "Can they?" she had asked earnestly. "I'm trying," he had said softly. The sedan crept past a frozen bus shelter. The plastic panel was spider-cracked, snow lodged in the fractures like white veins. Evan leaned forward. There, tucked behind the bench, a small shape huddled in a thin jacket, knees to chest, face lifting into the wind with stubborn stillness. Torn sneakers, threadbare gloves. In his hands, clutched to his chest, an old metal thermos wrapped in a paper bag. "Pull over," Evan said. "Road's slick, Mr. Hale." "Please," he added gently, and the driver eased to the curb. Cold punched through the door as it opened. Evan stepped into the air, breath blooming white, the keychain chiming softly when it met the thermos lid he'd placed in his pocket. He took 2 careful steps, shoes squeaking on the packed snow. "Hey," he said, voice calm, respectful. "You okay out here?" The boy looked up. 11, maybe. Pale breath, chapped lips. He didn't answer at first. He just tightened his arms around the thermos as if guarding a small fire no one else could see. "I'm Evan," he said more gently. "I've got a car right there. It's warm. We can get you somewhere safe." The boy shook his head, slowly, stubbornly. "I'm not leaving," he whispered. Evan crouched, the cold gnawing through the perfect line of his suit. "You don't have to be afraid of me." "I'm not," the boy said, a little defensively, a little bravely. "I'm waiting." "For who?" "For Mom to feel better," he said carefully. "I'll bring her soup when the diner opens." Evan swallowed, the air stinging his throat. He glanced at the thermos. "That for her?" The boy nodded. "It keeps warm better if I hold it close," he added earnestly, as if explaining a law of physics he had learned by heart. Wind slashed around the shelter. The boy shivered, pressed the thermos tighter, and blinked away the ice crystals clinging to his lashes. "What's your name?" Evan asked. "Micah." "Micah," he repeated kindly. "It's dangerously cold. Let me get you something hot now. We'll take it to your mom together. No detours, no tricks." Micah studied him, wary but curious. In the silence, the keychain in Evan's pocket tapped the thermos lid again, a faint, ringing note that sounded like a lock remembering its key. The city beyond them moaned with wind. Somewhere, a siren drifted thinly and faded. "Please," Evan said softly, steadily. "Let me help." Micah's shoulders eased a fraction. He glanced at the warm halo inside the idling car. He looked back at the cracked shelter, at the white breath leaving his lips and vanishing into air that did not care. He drew in a small, shaking breath. "Okay," he whispered. Evan stood, offering an open hand. Micah rose, slowly, carefully, still guarding the thermos like a secret. Together, they walked toward the car, two figures in a world of frost, leaving a narrow path of footprints that the wind tried very hard and almost succeeded to erase. The warmth inside the car felt unreal, like stepping from a nightmare into a dream that didn't quite trust itself yet. Micah sat stiffly on the leather seat, eyes flicking from the dashboard lights to the windshield wipers clearing thick snow. He held the thermos upright in his lap, gloved hands cupped around it protectively. He didn't sink back into the seat the way children do when they finally relax. He stayed ready, alert, like a stray who had learned that safety could vanish fast. Evan watched him quietly. "Seat belt?" he said. Micah nodded, fumbling with the buckle until it clicked. The driver looked back briefly. "Where to, sir?" Evan glanced at Micah. "Is there a place open this late?" Micah answered before Evan could. "Ruby's Diner, 2 blocks from Lake and 14th. They stay open for snowplow workers. They have soup." The kid had already thought through his plan. He wasn't lost. He was determined. "Let's go there," Evan said. The driver nodded and pulled away, headlights carving a path through the falling snow. For a moment, no one spoke. Wind raked past the windows like claws. The car heater hummed. "You're not from around here," Micah said suddenly, still staring straight ahead. Evan raised a brow. "Why do you say that?" "Your suit's not from Minnesota," the boy said, matter of fact. "Nobody here wears a silk tie during a polar vortex." Evan felt a small, reluctant smile tug at his mouth. "Fair," he said, "but I live here. Just not." He gestured vaguely out to the window. "Here." Micah didn't look impressed. "Rich neighborhood?" "Pretty much," Evan admitted. Micah nodded, like that confirmed something he had already assumed. His eyes drifted to the metal keychain in Evan's hand, the maintenance tag he still hadn't put away. It glinted under the dome light. "You work in machines?" Micah asked. "In a way," Evan said. "I build systems that help keep cities safe. Roads, energy, emergency services, that kind of thing." Micah watched him, expression unreadable. Then he said quietly, "Then why is it so cold?" The question was simple, innocent, but it landed like a stone in Evan's chest. He opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. There wasn't an honest reply that didn't taste like failure. "Sometimes systems miss things," Evan said finally. "People," Micah corrected softly. Systems miss people. Evan stared at him. This boy who looked like winter had carved its signature into his skin and still hadn't managed to dim the light in his eyes. "Yeah," Evan said. "They do." The car slowed as they reached a lonely intersection where the stoplight swayed in the wind. Ruby's diner sat on the corner like a glowing promise, neon sign buzzing, windows fogged, a snowplow parked outside. Inside, silhouettes shifted, truck drivers warming their hands over coffee. As the car rolled to a stop, Evan noticed Micah wasn't moving. His hand hovered near the door handle but didn't touch it. "What's wrong?" Evan asked. Micah swallowed. "I only have $1.62, he said. "Soup's $2, but they let me pay later sometimes. I don't want trouble. We can't sit inside if we don't buy something." The words cut deep. The boy had been planning to stand outside the diner and wait for it to open during a polar vortex, just to pay for soup, properly. Pride. Dignity. Even with frost at his bones, he refused pity. "Micah," Evan said gently, "you don't have to worry about that tonight. Order whatever you and your mom need. It's taken care of." Micah hesitated, then nodded once. They stepped out and trudged through knee-deep snow. A bell jingled above them as they pushed open the door. Heat rushed over them along with the thick smell of coffee, frying bacon, and buttered toast. A waitress looked up, startled, maybe by Micah's frozen face, or maybe by the immaculate man in a suit behind him. "Welcome to Ruby's," she said, wary but warm. "Sit anywhere." Micah walked straight to a corner booth and slid in, thermos still close. Evan sat across from him. A coffee pot appeared. "What can I get you boys?" the waitress asked. Micah looked at Evan, as if asking permission one last time. "Go ahead," Evan said. Micah cleared his throat. "2 chicken noodle soups, 1 bread roll, please." "2?" she asked. "You sure you don't want 3? Might help shake off the cold." Micah shook his head. "Just 2. Then he paused. "Thank you." When she walked away, Evan leaned forward. "Micah," he said gently, "why were you really out there alone?" Micah looked down at the thermos. His voice came small, but certain. "I wasn't alone," he said. "I promised my mom I'd bring back warmth." He placed the thermos on the table between them. It wasn't just metal, it was a mission. A symbol of everything he still believed could be saved. And Evan Hale, man of data, master of systems, realized something he had almost forgotten. Warmth travels person to person, but only if someone carries it. "Micah," he said quietly, "after we eat, I'm taking you home." Micah nodded. "Okay, but we have to hurry. She needs me." The soups came steaming, carried by a waitress whose tired eyes softened when she set the bowls down in front of Micah. He bowed his head slightly, not out of shyness but gratitude. He lifted one bowl carefully, as if afraid the warmth might slip away. His hands trembled from the cold, but he didn't reach for the spoon. Instead, he rested the bowl on his palm, feeling the heat seep back into numbed fingers. "Go ahead," Evan said, nodding toward the food. "Eat before it gets cold." Micah didn't move. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded napkin. Slowly, methodically, he tore it into strips and used them to pad the inside of the thermos, checking to make sure no metal touched the soup directly. He tested the thermos lid twice before opening it. Steam rose. He paused, hands steady despite the tremor in his shoulders. He poured exactly half the bowl inside. Only then did he begin to eat. Evan didn't speak at first. He didn't want to interrupt whatever silent ritual he was witnessing. There was nothing hurried or desperate about the boy's movements. Every motion was precise, controlled, as if survival had taught him discipline long before childhood had taught him ease. "You're saving the rest for your mom," Evan observed gently. Micah nodded with a quiet simplicity. "She gets dizzy. Warm food helps. It's better than medicine, she says." Evan pushed his untouched bowl forward. "Then she should have more." Micah shook his head. No, she'll know. If I bring back too much, she'll ask where I got it. She'll worry someone helped me, that I owe them. And do you? Evan asked. Micah met his eyes. I don't believe in taking things we can't pay back. Evan sat back studying him. There was no arrogance in that statement, only honor. He was a child with rules he lived by. How long has she been sick? Evan asked. Micah shrugged. Kind of a while. She worked at a facility, one of those big buildings with hum, lots of cooling fans and cables. A data center. Evan stiffened almost imperceptibly. She got headaches, Micah continued. Then she got tired. Then she got too weak to stand for long, so they stopped calling her in. They fired her? They said they were restructuring, Micah corrected. She said that was code for people like us get replaced first. People like us. Evan didn't need to ask what that meant. He already knew. Contract workers, disposable labor, no health insurance, no cushion for life. Does she have anyone else? Evan asked. Micah stirred his soup, eyes low. It's just me and her. Always has been. You don't have any family nearby? We don't have family, Micah said simply. We have each other. He said it with pride, not pity, a declaration, not a complaint. The words lingered. When the bowls were half empty, Micah reached carefully for the bread. He tore it into tiny pieces and wrapped half in napkins before placing it inside his coat. When he reached for the second soup bowl, his sleeve slipped down, revealing a bruise shaped like a frozen fingerprint. Micah, Evan said quietly. Where did that come from? Micah froze. His jaw tightened. Nowhere. You can tell me. It's nothing, Micah said sharply. He pulled his sleeve down. Can we go now? The defensiveness wasn't anger. It was fear disguised as escape. Evan let it go for the moment. Trust didn't grow under pressure. It needed room. Yeah, Evan said gently. We can go. Micah stood and lifted the thermos, now full. Before they left, he dug in his pocket and gingerly placed a crumpled dollar bill and 62 cents on the table. You don't have to do that, Evan told him. Micah looked at the coins like they were sacred. I said I'd pay. And that was that. As they stepped outside, snow swirled angrily, rushing against them in sharp whispers. Micah hunched his shoulders against the wind. Evan placed a hand lightly at his back, guiding him to the car. Just before they reached the door, Evan asked, Micah, if you could have anything right now, anything in the world, what would it be? He expected hesitation, maybe confusion, maybe fear of wanting too much. Instead, Micah answered instantly. Soup, he said firmly. Just soup. Not shoes, not toys, not... She hasn't eaten since yesterday, Micah said. That's what matters. And for the first time in a long time, Evan Hale, CEO of Hale Dynamics, architect of AI heat systems and emergency algorithms, felt the world tilt. Because standing in front of him wasn't a child asking for pity. It was a boy clinging fiercely to responsibility, to love, to survival. Okay, Evan said softly. Soup it is. As the car pulled away from the diner, Micah cradled the thermos to his chest like a lifeline. Evan watched him in silence, realizing he had never truly understood the meaning of value, until he met a boy who refused to ask for anything except enough to keep someone else alive. The frost thickened outside. But somewhere in Evan's chest, something warm began to move again, slow, careful, but alive. The car moved slowly through the frozen streets, tires crunching over ice. Micah pressed his forehead against the glass, watching the bleak city blur by. It was nearly 2 a.m. now, and Minneapolis had grown even quieter. Storm winds had erased everything soft or forgiving. No one walked unless they had to. No one lingered outside. The cold punished anyone who dared to be poor, homeless, or unlucky. Evan glanced at the boy beside him. The thermos lay in Micah's lap like something fragile, something worth protecting more than life itself. Evan noticed how he kept adjusting it, tightening the lid, cradling it, guarding it. He didn't fidget. He persisted. That was something different. "What's your mom's favorite soup?" Evan asked softly. Micah didn't take his eyes off the window. "Chicken noodle. But only if it smells like real food. The canned ones smell like a factory. She says soup has to feel alive." Evan nodded slowly. "Sounds like she has good taste." Micah shrugged. "She used to cook, before she got sick." His voice tightened ever so slightly. "She made bread, too. Real bread, not the kind from stores. She said food was love, and if you had any, you shared it." That last sentence stayed in the air. Heavy. "True, sir." They passed an alley where the dim glow of a barrel fire flickered. Two men huddled beside it. One of them stared at their car with a hollow look. Not anger, not envy. Just worn-out survival. Evan looked away. The car stopped at a red light. Snow drifted sideways, illuminated in long white streaks across the beams of the headlights. Micah shifted, arms tightening around the thermos. "You cold?" Evan asked. Micah shook his head. "You're shaking." Micah looked down at his hands. He wasn't shaking from fear, he was shaking from sheer exposure and stubbornness. He didn't complain, he didn't whine, he simply endured. "Micah," Evan said quietly, "you ever think about asking for help?" Micah stiffened, as if bracing for a fight. "No." "Why not?" "Because nobody helps for free," Micah said. "Not really. They either want to own you or forget you." "I'm not trying to own you," Evan said quietly. "Maybe not now," Micah answered, "but help is like debt. One day someone always comes to collect." Evan considered him. The boy spoke like someone who had lived too much truth too early. Kindness was a luxury he hadn't been allowed to trust. The driver turned another corner, heading south. The streets grew narrower, the lights fewer, the poverty more visible. Micah shifted again. A flash of something, fear, anticipation, moved through his eyes. "Almost there," he murmured, as if to himself. Evan looked out the window. "Where do you live?" "Near Cedar Flats," Micah said. Evan frowned. Cedar Flats was barely a neighborhood. It was a row of aging, half-abandoned apartment blocks where heat was a privilege and eviction a weekly threat. The city pretended to be fixing it. Everyone knew they weren't. "You walk there from the bus stop?" Micah nodded. "In this weather?" Micah didn't answer. The car slowed again, passing a boarded-up grocery store. Someone had spray-painted across the front. "You feel cold when no one cares." The truth of it struck Evan harder than he expected. He pressed a hand to his chest without realizing why. Soon, the buildings grew narrower and more worn out. Windows were patched with cardboard. Plastic fluttered where glass should be. The storm had crusted everything in ice, sealing the brokenness beneath a sheet of white. "Stop here," Micah said suddenly. The driver pulled over. Evan stared out. The apartment complex didn't look like a place people lived. It looked like a place people survived. "This is home?" Evan asked gently. Micah nodded once. "We'll walk from here." "We? I thought—" "You're bringing me in," Micah said simply. The boy was no fool. No matter what warmth had been offered, trust wasn't free. If this was a trap, if this stranger wasn't who he said he was, Micah would control the distance. Control was his armor. "Okay," Evan said. "We go together." Micah pushed the door open and stepped out into the storm. Evan followed, the cold slicing into his lungs. He walked beside the boy, step for step, crunching over broken ice and loose shingles buried beneath snow. They reached the entrance, an unlit doorway graffiti had claimed as its own. The hallway beyond was dark. Micah turned to Evan, eyes steady. "No talking loud," he said. "People sleep in the hall sometimes. And don't look at anyone too long. Only predators stare." Evan nodded. "Lead the way." They stepped inside. The door closed behind them with a heavy groan, sealing them inside a world where warmth was a memory and survival was a quiet war. And just like that, Evan Hale's life crossed a boundary, one he could never step back over again. The hallway smelled like damp carpet and cold metal. Every door they passed had a story written in scratches and dents: anger, struggle, desperation. Apartment numbers hung crooked or were missing entirely. Somewhere deep in the building, a pipe moaned. Somewhere else, a voice coughed in the dark. Micah moved quietly, like someone who knew how to survive in the places where noise drew the wrong kind of attention. Evan followed him step for step, careful not to look lost. Micah's warning echoed in his head. Only predators stare. This was a world that did not tolerate curiosity from outsiders. The hallway lights buzzed overhead. 2 flickered, 1 was dead. Ice crept under the door frames, spidering along the floor like white roots. Evan had seen frozen scaffolding on construction sites, winter storms blanketing wind turbines, even mountain towns buried in blizzards. But he had never seen cold, this personal, invading a home like a cruel trespasser. Micah stopped beside a metal door with peeling paint. Apartment 2C. He hesitated, glancing at Evan again as if asking, silently, "If I let you in, do I regret this later?" Then he turned the knob. Inside was a room that should not have been survivable in winter. The air felt brittle, like breathing from a freezer. Frost had formed along the inside walls. The window was sealed with clear tape and a folded blanket to keep out the draft. Shadows hunched inside the cold like they were trying to stay warm, too. Micah crossed the room quickly and knelt beside a low mattress against the wall. A woman lay there, wrapped in thin blankets. Her skin was pale, lips cracked, breaths shallow. "Mom," Micah whispered. He placed his hand on her shoulder gently. "I got it. I got the soup." Her eyelids fluttered. She tried to sit up but winced, clutching her ribs. You were gone too long." "I'm fine," he said. "You need to eat." She coughed, a dry sound that made her tremble. Micah unscrewed the thermos and poured soup into a chipped ceramic mug. Steam spiraled upward, a small miracle in a room that had forgotten warmth. Evan stood by the door, watching silently, respectfully. He didn't step closer yet, not until he was invited. Micah lifted the mug to his mother's hands and held it there, steadying her. She sipped slowly. Her body shuddered from the temperature difference, but color returned to her cheeks by degrees. After a few sips, her gaze shifted. She noticed Evan. Her posture stiffened. "Who is he?" she asked, voice hoarse but wary. Micah hesitated. "He helped me." Her eyes narrowed. "No one helps for free." Micah didn't repeat his earlier philosophy. He didn't need to. She already knew it. She had taught it. Evan finally stepped forward just enough to be seen clearly, but not close enough to intrude. He removed his gloves, held them in one hand, and spoke with a steady calm. "My name is Evan." Micah was outside in dangerous cold. "I made sure he got home safe." Her gaze traveled from his suit to his watch to the faint crease of warmth in his expression that didn't quite mask concern. She recognized wealth, and she recognized distance. She didn't trust either. "Thank you," she said politely but firmly. "You can go now." Micah looked from her to Evan, torn. There was so much unspoken in the distance between them. "I can help," Evan said. "Your heat." "We're fine," she cut in. "You're not fine," he said softly, without accusation. Just truth, her jaw set. "We manage." "With no heat? No reliable income? No medical care?" Evan asked gently. Micah's head snapped toward him, alarmed. But the truth was out now. The room didn't hide anything. Poverty made everything visible. Her eyes hardened. "We get by. We don't need saving." "I'm not here to save you," Evan said. "I'm here because someone should have shown up sooner." She frowned. "What does that mean?" Evan reached into his coat and pulled out the metal keychain. The maintenance tag. Micah froze. His mother stared. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. breath catching in her throat. "It's from one of my facilities," Evan said. "A Hail Dynamics data center, South Minneapolis." He turned the tag over in his fingers. "Facility Subcontractor Unit 4793, he read. "Rack, stabilization, and cooling maintenance." He lifted his gaze. "You worked there?" Her breath shivered. She swallowed. "I did some contract shifts, cleaning, light inspections." Her voice trembled with something heavier than illness, dread. "Why?" "I recognize the tag," Evan said. "We issue them to independent contract workers." She stared at him like he had just confessed to something unspeakable. She looked like someone who had been hurt by a system so many times that she no longer believed people existed outside of it. "You're one of them," she whispered. "Maybe once," Evan said quietly, "but not tonight." Micah looked back and forth between them. Confusion, fear, something else, hope, fighting to breathe. Evan slipped the keychain into his palm and closed his fist around it. "Tell me what happened," he said softly. "All of it." Micah's mother shook her head, at first refusing, but then her eyes closed, heavy with exhaustion. Something inside her broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet grief of someone who ran out of good options long ago. "They stopped calling me when I got sick," she said. And just like that, the truth began. The revelation broke something open in the room, an invisible thread that had been holding everything together. Micah's mother had tried to sit tall, to defend what little dignity they had left, but the truth had its own gravity. Her shoulders eased in surrender. Silence settled, not awkward, not hostile, just heavy, like an honest winter sky. Avon stepped deeper into the room, scanning it carefully without judgment. A hot plate sat unplugged on a crate near the wall. A plastic bowl and 2 spoons rested in a dish rack beside the sink. On the small counter, a stack of unpaid utility bills leaned against a pill bottle with a pharmacy label half torn. The chill inside wasn't just physical, it was structural. This was the kind of cold that came from too many closed doors, too many invisible walls, too many people choosing not to see. Micah watched Evan cautiously, still guarding the thermos. "We don't need anything," he said, not entirely convincingly. Evan didn't argue. He moved toward the radiator and knelt. He brushed aside a layer of frost and inspected the corroded valve. "It's been out for 2 weeks," Micah's mother said quietly. "The landlord said they'd fix it when they get to it." "In this weather?" Evan asked. She gave a weak shrug. "He said he had a backlog. Said we could buy space heaters if we wanted heat faster." Micah spoke up, sharp, protective. "Space heaters blow fuses. Last year a family down the hall used one. Their apartment caught fire." "Second floor," his mother murmured. "A grandmother and 2 little girls. They made it out. Their things didn't." The unspoken truth hung in the air. When you're poor, safety is expensive. Fire and frost stalk you equally, and survival demands that you choose between them. Evan stood, pulling his phone from his coat. "I can have someone here and—" "No," she snapped, suddenly alert. "You can't call anyone." Micah tensed. "Mom." "No." Her voice trembled with urgency. "If the landlord finds out it was us, they'll evict. If inspectors show up, they'll shut the building down. Then we'll be outside." Evan lowered the phone slowly. He had spent years designing emergency systems for cities, algorithms that delivered aid with precision. But this brutal calculus of poverty, was raw and human in a way spreadsheets never captured. Systems didn't understand fear of eviction notices. Systems didn't see the people who whispered survival strategies in the dark. "Okay," Evan said gently. "No inspectors. No calls." She stared at him, trying to read what kind of man he was. "Micah," Evan said softly. "Grab that blanket there." Micah retrieved a heavy thermal blanket from the crate. Evan walked back to the door, stepped outside briefly, and returned carrying a black emergency duffel from the trunk of his car. He set it down, unzipped it, and pulled out a compact field heater, the kind used in search and rescue vehicles. He placed it in the corner of the room and clicked it on. A low hum filled the silence as the device began circulating heat. Micah's eyes widened. You just carry that around? I like to be prepared, Evan said simply. Micah's mother stared at the heater, then at him. Why are you doing this? Because it should have been done a long time ago, he said. Her eyes flickered, confusion coated in caution. She didn't trust his kindness yet. Trust was something earned with consistency, not gestures. Evan removed his coat but kept his respectful distance. All right, he said quietly. Talk to me. Start from the beginning. Micah's mother hesitated, then wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. She sipped another small swallow of soup before speaking. I started at Hale Dynamics as a cleaner for the night shift, she said. Micah was 7. I worked while he slept on a makeshift cot in the break room. Management pretended they didn't know because I was efficient. I cleaned, reset workstations, fixed minor maintenance issues. I memorized the place. The hum of servers was like a heartbeat after a while. You kept the facility running, Evan said. She gave a dry laugh. No, I kept it alive, not the same thing. Evan met her gaze. He didn't argue. She continued. Then I got headaches. I ignored them. Single mothers don't get sick days. But the fatigue got worse. I was assigned to coolant leak sweeps. The air burned sometimes. They said it was safe. Evan clenched his jaw. He knew the chemical warnings. He had signed them himself in risk approvals. Emergency response protocols were clear, but protocols didn't always reach contractors. The last day I worked, I collapsed between server rows, she whispered. I woke up at home. Someone must have driven me here. A few days later, they stopped calling. No explanation, no severance, no referral, just silence. Evan had heard enough. He didn't speak right away. He couldn't. Guilt coiled through his chest like barbed wire. He had built his empire on systems he believed helped people. But here, right in front of him, was a life his system had erased. He inhaled slowly, then reached into his coat again, pulling out a portable medical monitor. He crouched beside her respectfully. With your permission, he said gently, I'd like to check your vitals, just to know how urgent your condition is. She hesitated. Then she nodded. Evan worked methodically, checking her pulse, oxygen levels, temperature. He moved with calm precision, quietly adjusting the dial on the heater as warmth slowly fought its way back into the room. Micah watched every motion, measuring him, weighing him. The boy wasn't looking for perfection. He was looking for truth. And in that moment, beneath the hum of a makeshift heater and a winter storm outside, Evan made a silent promise. He wasn't walking away from this family. Not now. Not ever. Micah's mother, her name was Lena, leaned back against the wall, weakened but steadier now in the rising warmth. The heater's quiet hum fought back the grip of winter inch by inch. Color slowly returned to her face, but exhaustion still pressed beneath her eyes. Micah stayed close, one hand on her arm, the other on the thermos. His watchfulness sharpened whenever she coughed, as if he feared each one might carry her away. Evan packed away the medical monitor and wrote a quick note in his phone. He wasn't texting anyone yet. He was documenting what mattered. Oxygen low, probable respiratory stress, prolonged exposure to cold, blood pressure unstable. He'd seen these numbers before in disaster relief reports, and they never ended with stories of people simply getting better on their own. Do you have a primary doctor? Evan asked gently. We don't go to hospitals, Lena replied quickly. Because of cost? Because of systems, she said. Hospitals ask questions. Questions lead to records. Records lead to agencies. Agencies lead to eviction and custody reviews. And once they take your kid, her voice shook, you don't get them back. Micah looked up, face tight. He'd heard that speech before. It wasn't paranoia. It was fear carved from experience. Evan nodded slowly. Okay, I won't push hospitals tonight. Good, she said, wary. But I am getting you seen. he added. A private home nurse can be here first thing tomorrow. Cash arrangement. No records. Lena hesitated. That offer landed differently. Not a handout. A solution. How do I pay you back? She asked. You don't, Evan replied. She studied him, searching his eyes for any sign of threat, trick, or hook. People always say that, she whispered. Then they bring the bill later. I won't, Evan said. Why not? Because I don't do business with debt, he said. Only with decisions. And I've made mine. Her gaze lingered on him. She didn't trust easily, but something in his voice made her lean back without arguing. Micah watched silently. Evan scanned the room again, making an inventory in his mind. Broken heater, failing electricity, limited food, no medical support, no safety net. He had built an empire to solve citywide problems, but cities weren't made of maps. They were made of people. And some of those people had fallen through cracks his AI dashboards couldn't see. He stepped toward the small table in the corner, cleared just enough to hold a candle in a pile of envelopes. Out of respect, he didn't open them, but he recognized them by weight and imprint. Rent notice, utility shut off a warning, medical past due balance. Final notice. Then one envelope caught his attention. White, thin, stamped with a corporate logo he knew by heart. Hale Dynamics, his company. Evan picked it up slowly. His voice lowered. May I? Lena hesitated, then nodded once. He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Termination notice. Contract worker. No severance authorized. Ineligible for continuation of benefits. End of employment. 62 days past. Below that, his company seal. His legal division signature. And in the top margin, Facility ID, SD 47, Minneapolis South. The same number engraved on the metal keychain he had found in Micah's hand. His hand tightened around the letter. This. This was why algorithms would never replace accountability. Someone had let this happen. Someone had signed this paper knowing what it meant. Someone had ended her livelihood with a single click and walked away. He folded the letter slowly, deliberately. Then his eyes caught something else in the envelope, a second paper, partially hidden. He pulled it free. Medical insurance terminated. Effective tomorrow. Evan froze. His pulse spiked. Not in panic, in fury. The kind of fury that came from disbelief meeting injustice. You lose coverage tomorrow, he said quietly. Lena nodded, voice brittle. Yeah, I know. Micah looked between them, not fully understanding, but sensing danger in the quiet. Evan lifted his gaze to Lena. Did you try to appeal? No one returns your calls, she said. Once they mark you as inactive, you're not a person anymore, just a file. Her resignation sat heavy in the room. Evan's jaw clenched. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rant, but when he finally spoke, each word carried steel. This is wrong. Lena gave a tired half-smile, the kind people wear when they've given up expecting justice. Wrong doesn't matter, she said softly. Cold still comes. Rent still rises. Food still runs out. Maybe, Evan said, but not tonight. He reached into his coat and pulled out his laptop. Micah blinked. You carry a computer around too? Tools, Evan said simply. Different battles need different tools. He sat, powered on the device and logged into a private company portal, one with access only executives had. As the screen lit his face, Micah whispered to his mother, Who is he? She shook her head slowly. I don't know. Evan typed with controlled precision. His eyes stayed locked on the screen. Cold, relentless, surgical. He found her employment record. He found the signatures that ended her contract. He found the request that cut her insurance. Every action had a digital footprint. Every decision had a name behind it. Then he found something else, an internal message thread attached to her file. A supervisor had written, "Contractor fatigue complaints. Replace if productivity drops. Keep ops lean. Budget priority on AI expansion, not staff retention." A single line of text that told the truth about everything wrong with his company. Evan closed his eyes for half a beat, then reopened them. No softness remained. The system he built hadn't failed. He had. He looked up from the screen. "Lena," he said quietly, "I'm not asking. I'm telling you. I'm fixing this." Her voice trembled. "Why?" "Because nobody should freeze," he said. "Not in my city." Micah stared at him, confused, but for the first time, curious. Something had changed. Something irreversible. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was personal. The heater pulsed softly against the bitter cold while digital light flickered across Evan's face. He sat still, the laptop open, eyes narrowed. Not in confusion, but in reckoning. Lena's employment termination file glowed on the screen like an indictment, line after line of procedural cruelty disguised as policy. Micah hovered protectively beside his mother, one arm braced behind her as she sat propped against the wall. Her breaths came easier now. The warmth and soup had done something. Small, but enough to fight another hour, another night. Evan's voice broke softly through the stillness. "Lena, why didn't you fight this?" She gave a quiet, weary laugh. "Fight? Who? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a union member. I'm just a badge number. When you're a contractor, you don't get appeals. You get recycled." "You should have been covered under emergency health protocol," Evan said sharply. "There are safety protections for contract workers." She cut him off gently. "Not in real life. Maybe on paper. Maybe in meetings where people use words like protocol and coverage." Her eyes met his, but not where we live. Micah turned toward him. "You don't know how it is down here." There was no anger in his voice, just truth. "People fall and no one sees. We're invisible." Evan stared at him. Something about that word, invisible, landed heavy, because deep down, beneath all the controlled success, beneath the calculated empire, beneath the relentless climb, Evan had known this moment would come, the moment where metrics didn't matter, shares didn't matter, prestige didn't matter, the moment where he would be forced to confront the truth. He had built a system that had forgotten its duty to the human beings inside it. He closed the laptop and exhaled slowly. "No one should be invisible," he said quietly. Micah watched him carefully, as if waiting to hear whether the rest of the sentence would matter. Evan continued. "I built Hail Dynamics to help cities survive disasters. But I missed the biggest disaster of all, people falling through the cracks that nobody tracks." He paused. "Your family shouldn't have slipped past us. That's on me." Lena stared. "Are you saying you run that company?" Evan met her eyes. "Yes." She sat stunned for a moment, then let out a soft, bitter breath. "So, that's why you're here? Some campaign story? Some PR stunt about saving the poor?" "No." His tone didn't rise, but it solidified. "I'm not here to take pictures. I'm here to make this right." "How?" Micah asked simply. That question struck deeper than any accusation. Evan didn't answer right away, because for the first time in his career, he didn't have a strategy deck, a projection model, or an algorithm. He had no script, just responsibility, and the question lingered inside him. What does success really mean, if it leaves people freezing in the dark? He stood and slipped on his coat. "I'll be back," he said. Micah stepped forward quickly. "Where are you going?" "First," Evan said, "I'm getting your power fixed before this building becomes a morgue." Lena pushed herself up on trembling arms. "No," she said quickly. "I told you, if the landlord—" "No landlord," Evan assured. "Quiet work. Off the grid. I know people." Micah narrowed his eyes with new suspicion. "What kind of people?" "The good kind," Evan said. the kind who don't need credit or applause. Before either of them could argue, he was dialing a number. "Victor, it's me," he said into the phone. "I need a field crew. No paperwork, no company trucks, insulation strip, leak seals, backup generator, stealth install. You know the protocols." The voice on the other end hesitated. "Sir, Protocol 9 is reserved for humanitarian crises." Evan stepped toward the frosted window, looking out into the storm. "Look around," he said coldly. "What do you think this is?" After a beat, the voice replied, "I'll assemble a team, quietly." When Evan hung up, Micah stared at him with a contradiction of emotions: hesitation, curiosity, and something that hadn't been there before: respect. Evan turned back to them. "Help is coming," he said. "Real help. But until then, this room stays warm." Micah watched him, shoulders loosening just a fraction. Lena, still cautious, asked softly, "Why us?" Evan shook his head. "This isn't about us. This is bigger." He lifted the metal keychain between his fingers, the one engraved with the facility serial number, the one that had brought him here, the one Micah had been carrying like a puzzle piece of fate. "This," he said, holding it up, "tells me everything I need to know. You didn't end up in this storm because you failed. The system failed you." Micah's gaze locked onto the keychain. "Are you going to give it back?" Evan shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "I'm going to follow it." Micah frowned. "Follow it where?" "To the people who let this happen," Evan said. "And I'm not stopping until everything connected to this number is fixed." He slipped the keychain into his coat pocket. It clinked softly, like the first gear of a massive machine beginning to move. Then he looked at Micah and said something that changed everything. "Tomorrow, if you're willing, I want you to come with me." Micah blinked, stunned. "Me? Yeah," Evan said. "Because if I'm going to fix this, I need someone who knows how to see what my world doesn't." The storm outside screamed against the glass, and inside, something impossible began. A CEO and a boy, two lives from opposite worlds, were about to rewrite the meaning of success together. Morning did not arrive gently in Minneapolis. It crawled in cold and gray, dragging wind and ice behind it. The storm hadn't stopped. Roads were buried, breath froze in the air, and the city looked as if it had been carved from winter itself. Yet, in apartment 2C, for the first time in days, there was warmth. Silent industrial heaters, disguised beneath stacked crates, blew steady controlled heat into the room. Fresh insulation lined the windows from the inside, thin but effective. Someone had repaired the broken electrical wiring behind the walls, a miracle done between midnight and dawn by Evan's quiet, unseen crew. Lena sat up now, stronger than she had been the night before. Micah stood at the stove, pouring oatmeal into two cracked bowls. He moved with quiet purpose, making sure his mother's portion came first, but something was different in his eyes, something alert, unsettled, and curious. Evan Hale had returned, this time not alone. Beside him stood a girl, about Micah's age. She had soft brown hair tucked beneath a wool hat, her cheeks flushed pink from the wind. Her coat was navy blue, high quality, clearly insulated. She carried a paper bag from a bakery whose prices most families would consider a luxury. Her gloved hands tightened around the handles. She looked out of place here, but that wasn't what made Micah stare at her. What made him stare was that she looked afraid. Not of him, not of the building, not of the cold. Afraid of not belonging. Evan stood between them. "Micah, this is my daughter, Lucy." She lifted her hand awkwardly. "Hi." Micah didn't move. The silence stretched. His voice came guarded. "Why did you bring her here?" Evan answered without hesitation. "Because I don't want her growing up blind." Micah's brow tightened. He didn't understand. Evan gently nudged Lucy forward. She took a step. "I made something," she said, holding out the paper bag. "We stopped on the way and I I asked for something warm. I didn't know what to bring, so she pulled out 2 fresh bread rolls, still warm, wrapped in wax paper. Micah froze. He didn't reach for them. He didn't thank her. His eyes flicked from the bread to her face, suspicious, even wounded. Bread wasn't just food in this home, it was memory. It belonged to someone. It carried a meaning she couldn't know. Lena spoke softly from the mattress. "Micah, it's okay." "Take it." Micah moved slowly, accepting the bag without taking his eyes off Lucy. When he finally opened it, steam rose from the bread, and for a moment he was too still to speak. Lucy didn't smile. She didn't beam with pride. She just watched him, carefully, hoping she hadn't done the wrong thing. Micah tore off a small piece and handed it to his mother before taking any for himself. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed, then looked at Lucy again. Her voice trembled just a little. "Is it good?" "It's fine," he said. Lucy didn't look offended. She actually looked relieved. She stepped back next to her father. "You didn't have to bring her," Micah said to Evan. "I know," Evan replied calmly, "but I needed her to understand something I failed to see for too long." "And what's that?" "That sometimes," Evan said, "the heart sees clearer than the algorithm." Micah didn't know what to do with that answer. He turned away, set the bread down, and returned to the stove. But he sneaked a glance at Lucy. She didn't miss it. Evan sat beside Lena. His voice softened. "A home nurse is coming at 10. Quiet visit. Cash only. No forms." Lena nodded, voice still rough but steadier. "Thank you." "It's only a start," he said. "Today I want to speak with your facility manager and whoever terminated your file." "You think that'll change anything?" Lena asked. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we're going to find out." "We?" Micah said, glancing over. Evan looked at him deliberately. "If you still want to come." Micah stepped away from the stove slowly. "Why me?" "Because I need someone who sees what people like me never see," Evan said. "Someone who knows the ground, not the theory." Micah frowned. "That sounds like a line." "It's not," Evan said simply. "It's respect." Micah hesitated. A war raged behind his eyes. He didn't want charity. He didn't want pity. But something else, something deeper, pulled at him. Maybe it was the chance to be heard. Maybe it was the chance to matter. He looked at his mother. Lena studied Evan, then her son. A mother measures risk faster than anyone alive. She weighed everything. The unknown, the danger, the strange path forming in front of them. She looked at Micah and said quietly, "If you go, don't go small." Micah met her gaze. She nodded once. "Go brave." He didn't thank her. He didn't need to. He turned back to Evan with a quiet resolve. "'Kay, I'll go." Evan nodded. "Then we leave in 30 minutes. Micah grabbed his jacket. Then he did something no one expected. He reached across the table, broke one of the warm bread rolls in half, and offered it to Lucy. "For the car," he said. Lucy blinked, caught between surprise and a smile that grew slowly, shyly. "Thanks," she said. And, in that moment, an invisible door opened. Not fully, but enough. It wasn't about bread, it was about permission. Worlds had begun to connect. And once 2 worlds connect, the path between them can build something new. They left Cedar Flats in silence, walking side by side through streets buried in snow. Wind clawed at their coats and stung their faces, but the steps felt easier than the night before. Micah walked in the middle, Evan to his right, Lucy to his left, 3 silhouettes crossing a frozen world that didn't know what to make of them yet. Evan had offered to send a car, but Micah refused. "If we're going to fix what happened," he said, "we go the way she went. Bus routes, walk paths, real life." Evan didn't argue. They cut through long blocks of shuttered storefronts, boarded laundromats, and corner stores with out-of-order signs taped to flickering ATM machines. Lucy looked around, quiet but wide-eyed, seeing a version of her own city she never knew existed. Micah pointed ahead. That's Ruby's diner. That's where I waited for the kitchen to open. You go alone most nights? Evan asked. When food runs out, Micah said simply. You don't wait until you're starving. You plan for it. Like winter, it always comes. Evan didn't speak. They reached a small grocery store that looked half alive. Inside, shelves were thin, but the people were thick, lined up at the counter clutching milk, instant noodles, stale bread. Evan watched a woman count coins into her palm, whispering numbers under her breath, 3 times before letting go of them. Micah caught him watching. She'll put something back in a minute, he said. Watch. Sure enough, the woman returned one of the items from her basket. She chose to return fruit, kept the bread. Hunger math, Micah murmured. You make choices. Evan didn't respond. He couldn't. They passed a block of apartments where a group of tenants huddled around a breaker box outside, trying to restore power. No landlord in sight, no city worker, just survival, done by hand in the cold. It was a quiet rebellion against abandonment. This is what you don't see from glass towers, Micah said, looking straight ahead. This is what gets missed in the clean reports. Lucy spoke for the first time since they left. I didn't know people lived like this. Micah looked at her, not cruelly, not accusingly. He just said, Now you do. She didn't look away. They reached a cross street where a rusted bus sign leaned sideways. A mother sat with her toddler wrapped inside her coat, both shivering. No strollers, no luggage, just a plastic bag and a blanket that wasn't enough. Evan stopped. Micah watched him closely, testing him. Evan stepped over to the woman and knelt. Ma'am, there's a warming shelter 3 blocks west. They've got cots, blankets, and hot meals. They don't take people without ID, she said hollowly, and they'll alert CPS if they think you're unstable. My kid's cold, not neglected. The pain in her voice had edges. Evan slipped a card from his coat, a black pass with silver trim. Emergency shelter override access. He placed it in her hand. No questions, no forms. Show them this and they'll let you in tonight. The woman looked at the card like it was a myth. She whispered, Thank you, and walked quickly, clutching her child close. Micah watched him. You carry a lot in that coat, he said. Evan glanced at him. Tools, he said. Every job needs them. Micah didn't smile, but something softened around his eyes. They reached a street where the snow grew too thick to walk through. Evan stopped. Hold on. He stepped off to the side, dialed a number. Deployed 2-lane clearers on Jefferson and 12th, he said. Quiet routes. Sir, priority is downtown transit. Not anymore, Evan said, ending the call. Plow drones were dispatched minutes later. Micah watched them in awe as autonomous snowblades cut a clean path down the street. You just changed a whole route, Micah said. Evan nodded. Sometimes systems just need a human hand to correct the course. They walked another block until Micah suddenly stopped. His face changed. Guard came back up. He pointed. See that building? A tired brown brick structure leaned beside a boarded-up deli. A cracked sign read, Pine Harbor Apartments. Windows were covered in frost from the inside, just like Lena's place. That's where Mrs. Hahn lives, Micah said. She's 72. Heater died last week. No family. She coughs all night. Lucy looked up at Evan. Evan didn't hesitate. He stepped to the building door, pulled a thin tool sheet from his coat pocket and popped the lock with 2 precise motions. Lucy blinked. Dad? Since when do you know how to break in? Evan gave her a look. Never build security you don't know how to bypass. Inside, cold air stabbed through them. He followed Micah to the 3rd floor, apartment 3B. A soft cough came from behind the door. Micah knocked gently. Mrs. Han, it's Micah. The door cracked open. A frail woman peered out, frozen breath escaping her mouth. Your heater broke, Evan said. We're going to fix it. Within minutes, Evan had sealed the window leak with emergency liner and magnetic insulation strips. He set a compact heater in the room and plugged it directly into the breaker bypass to avoid overload. He checked her oxygen level and pulse. Mrs. Hahn squeezed his hand. "I didn't think people cared anymore," she whispered. Evan shook his head. "They do," he said. "Sometimes they just forget how to show it." Micah stood near the doorway watching Evan, not with suspicion now, but with a question taking shape behind his eyes. Outside, snow kept falling, but inside that small apartment, heat returned, and with it, hope. This was only the beginning. They left Mrs. Hahn's building and continued through the frozen maze of the back streets and buried sidewalks. The storm had grown wilder since morning. Sharp, wind-driven snow lashed at everything, as if winter itself wanted no witness to what was happening here. But the three of them, Evan, Micah, and Lucy, kept walking. "We won't make it far if the wind keeps pushing east," Evan said, checking the horizon. "We'll head toward the transit bridge and swing around the river." Micah nodded, but he wasn't really listening anymore. He was watching Evan, not just for what he did, but why. The man didn't act like a CEO. CEOs didn't fix heaters. CEOs didn't reroute plow drones for one kid. CEOs didn't step into lives that weren't their own. Unless something had changed inside them first. "Can I ask you something?" Micah said suddenly. Evan looked over. "Sure." "Why didn't you help people before?" Behind them, Lucy's footsteps slowed. Even she looked at her father, curious and cautious. Evan didn't bristle. He didn't dodge. He let the question land. "Because I thought I already was," he said. Micah blinked. Evan continued. "I thought that if I built a good system, if I helped the city move smarter and faster, that I was doing enough. That helping the world was about building things that solved problems at scale." He paused. "But I forgot something important." "What?" "That solving problems and helping people aren't always the same thing." The wind turned. Evan shielded Lucy from a gust while they walked. They passed a row of old homes with icy steps and windows sealed with taped plastic. Micah stopped at one of them, a single-level house with a rusted mailbox. "That place," he said, pointing. "I know who lives there. Single mom, 3 kids. Her youngest has asthma. She keeps him warm by boiling water on the stove and opening the oven door." Lucy's eyes widened. "That's dangerous." Micah nodded. "She knows. But nobody helps people like her." Evan crouched to Micah's height. "We're going to help them," he said, "and a whole lot more." "How?" Micah asked. "By building something that actually keeps people warm," Evan said. "Not someday. Now." He took out his tablet, an industrial-grade device linked to Hale Dynamics' internal systems. He opened a secure channel to his engineers. "This is Hale," Evan said, voice firm. "I'm activating Heat Map Initiative B4. A stunned voice replied, "Sir, that's just a concept. It's not ready." "It is now," Evan said. "But, headquarters—" "Let me be clear," Evan interrupted. "This isn't a feature. This is a mission. We're launching today. Patch to all city monitors and field AI nodes immediately." The engineer hesitated. "What parameters do you want?" Evan looked at Micah, then at Lucy, and answered. "We map cold risk. Not weather," he said. "People. Any home that registers dangerous heat loss goes on priority watch. If someone is in a building below survival thresholds, we send help whether they asked or not." The engineer was silent. "And one more thing," Evan added. "I want the system to find the invisible ones, the people who fall between the cracks. No ID match? No problem. The map expands." "That could break protocol," the engineer warned. "Then break it," Evan said. He ended the call. Micah stared at him. "You're changing your whole company because of this?" Evan shook his head. "No." He turned toward him. "I'm changing it because I should have done it years ago." Lucy stepped closer. "Dad, is this really going to work?" Evan softened. "It will," he said quietly. "Because this time, I'm not building it alone." Micah frowned. What do you mean? I want you on my advisory team, Evan said. No title, no corporate garbage, just truth. You see things I don't. Micah stared. Lucy stared. Even the wind paused. You're kidding, Micah said finally. No, Evan said. I'm asking. Why me? I'm just someone who knows what survival feels like, Evan said. Someone who refuses to quit. Someone who knows the streets better than 100 analysts. Someone who knows what warmth really means. Micah's throat worked. He didn't speak. Just think about it, Evan said gently. But know this. I'll never build another system that forgets people like your mom. That starts with you. Micah didn't answer, but he nodded. Not a small nod. A fierce one. They walked the last 2 blocks to the river where a small stone bridge arched over the frozen water. Beneath it, clusters of makeshift tents. People huddled together against wind and time. Some didn't even have tents, just tarps pulled tight around them. Lucy shivered at the sight. Micah clenched his jaw. Evan looked at them and said something that didn't sound like a corporate slogan. It sounded like a vow. Until every one of them is warm, we're not done. He took the metal keychain from his pocket, the one that once linked to a system that failed people like Lena, and he gripped it with purpose. It wasn't just a clue anymore. It was a promise. They made it back to Cedar Flats just before nightfall. The wind howled between the leaning buildings, and snow swirled like smoke through the broken streets. But something was different now. Quietly, subtly, hope had taken a seat in the cold. Inside apartment 2C, the air was warm, real warm. The silent heater Evan had installed hummed steadily. Fresh blankets had appeared on the bed. A basket of groceries now sat on the counter. Solid, simple food. Oatmeal, potatoes, pasta, oranges, eggs. Power hummed through the walls without flickering. For once, survival didn't feel like a fight. Lena sat at the small table, no longer wrapped in 3 layers just to breathe. Her hair was brushed, her eyes clearer. Color had returned to her cheeks. When Micah walked in, she straightened in surprise. "You're back," she said softly. Micah nodded and helped Lucy remove her coat. Lucy smiled shyly as she wiped frost from her hat. Lena looked at Evan. "You really did all this?" "No," Evan said. "This was just a small correction. The real work is just starting." Lena looked at her son, then back at Evan. Something in her expression changed. A shift, a cautious acceptance, the beginning of trust. Micah walked to the cupboard and grabbed 2 mugs. "Tea?" he asked. Lena blinked. "You're making tea?" Micah shrugged. "Figured maybe tonight we drink something hot because we want to, not because we have to." That landed deep. Evan stepped forward, carrying a rectangular box wrapped in blue paper. He set it gently on the table in front of Micah. Micah frowned. "What's that?" "A gift," Evan said. "I don't do gifts," Micah replied. "This one isn't about taking," Evan said. "It's about giving." Micah watched him carefully, searching for the catch. Then he slowly pulled away the paper and lifted the lid. Inside was a stainless steel thermos, sleek, heavy, built for fieldwork. But this wasn't just any thermos. Micah froze when he saw the engraving. His name, M-I-C-A-H. And beneath it, "For every winter you'll never face alone." He swallowed hard. His fingers touched the letters like they didn't belong to him. He wasn't a kid who cried in front of people. He'd learned long ago that emotions cost too much in certain places. But something flickered in his eyes now. Raw, startled emotion. Like someone had built a door in a wall he thought would stand forever. "It's not charity," Evan said gently. "It's a tool. You carry warmth wherever you go, Micah. That's rare. Don't ever lose that." Micah didn't speak, but he closed the box, not to reject it, but to protect it. Lucy smiled softly, watching him. She had seen expensive gifts before, but none that mattered like this. Micah cleared his throat and sat down. "Thank you," he said quietly. But the warmth didn't stay still for long, because Micah suddenly turned, grabbed his coat again, and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Lena asked. Micah zipped his jacket. "Next door," he said. Lena frowned. "Now?" He nodded. "Mrs. Ramirez has been heating her apartment with her oven. Her little girl's been coughing all week. If we've got heat now, it means we share." He lifted the new thermos, and Evan's heart, already cracking open, split wider. "I'll go," Evan said. "No," Micah said. "You already did enough. This part is on me." Then he looked back over his shoulder, not angrily, not stubbornly, but with a strength that belonged to him alone. "You said warmth starts here," he said. "So I'm starting it." He stepped into the hall. A moment later, there was a knock. "Mrs. Ramirez?" Micah called softly. "You home? We've got extra heat now. Want to share some?" The door opened. A tired mother looked out, surprised. Micah held up the thermos. A peace offering. A promise. And the first real act of the movement that would spread far beyond one frozen street. Evan watched him, feeling something painfully humbling settle in his chest. He came here to change a life, but this boy was about to change the world. The next 48 hours moved like a storm, fast, intense, unstoppable. Word spread through Cedar Flats that someone had restored heat in 2C and that help had come without conditions. No paperwork, no landlord retaliation, no catch. Then came the rumor that hit harder than anything. Someone powerful cared what happened down here. For the first time in a long time, people opened their doors. Micah moved through the halls carrying his new thermos, knocking softly, offering warmth one apartment at a time. He didn't make speeches. He didn't ask questions, he just asked, "You okay in there?" If they said no, he stayed. If they said yes, he checked anyway. Mrs. Hahn now slept through the night without coughing. The Torres boy across the hall got asthma medication delivered anonymously. The Franklin twins finally got clean blankets and winter boots. A quiet ripple of warmth moved through the building, and at the center of it, Evan Hale kept his word. He set up small portable heat units in the basement, where half a dozen tenants had been sleeping near laundry dryers for warmth. He installed thermal window strips on the lowest floors and put carbon monoxide alarms in every hallway. He sealed cracks in old piping that let ice creep into walls. His team, operating like ghost mechanics, worked between midnight and dawn so the landlord wouldn't sabotage the repairs. He didn't announce it. He didn't brand it. He didn't take credit. He just did it. Meanwhile, a home nurse now visited Lena twice a day. Her lungs were healing. Strength slowly returned to her hands. She still looked thin, but her eyes held something new: peace. The first thing she did when she could walk outside again was stand in the doorway and watch her son. Micah didn't know she was watching when he told a nervous kid from the third floor, "Come inside. Your mom can talk to mine. That's what neighbors do." He didn't know she heard him tell Lucy, "Don't feel bad. You didn't see this before. Now you do. That's what matters." He didn't know she wiped away a tear when he said to Evan, "If you build something and it doesn't reach people like us, build it again." But she heard it, and it changed her too. Then came the bigger moment. The moment everything turned. The moment the system itself felt the shift. Inside Hale Dynamics headquarters, the boardroom lights glowed against 30th floor windows overlooking a frozen skyline. Executives sat across a long marble table, watching Evan enter. For the first time in his entire career, he walked into that room not as a CEO, but as a man who had finally chosen a side. One of the board members, sharp suit, colder smile, leaned forward. "Evan, you can't launch AI heat map without legal clearance. It violates privacy protocols. You rerouted company budget into whatever it is you're doing in Cedar Flats with no approvals. And reinstating that terminated contract worker? If she files a lawsuit, she could own half this company." Evan set a folder on the table. Calm. steady, certain. In that folder, he said, is a sweeping rewrite of Hail Dynamics' global protocols, effective immediately. Someone scoffed. Rewrite? Evan, be serious. I am, he said, more serious than I've ever been. He opened the folder. Mandatory Winter Emergency Policy. No service shutdowns in freezing conditions. Guaranteed medical coverage. All contract workers receive full emergency benefits. No termination allowed during medical hardship. Cold Risk Response Operations. Hail Dynamics will fund community warming access, quiet home repairs, cold route meal delivery, and emergency thermal response permanently. Human Priority Clause. Any AI system must be verifiably accountable to human welfare metrics. No algorithm may reduce human safety in the name of efficiency. Advisory Council Requirement. The company must include real people affected by policy decisions, not just executives, on every major review. A board member squinted. Who exactly qualifies for an advisory seat? Evan slid one last document forward. Micah Hale, he said. There was a stunned silence. Micah, he repeated firmly, will serve as lead community advisor. He's a child, someone snapped. He's a survivor, Evan said, and I trust him more than anyone I've ever met. The boardroom erupted. You can't overhaul company policy based on one emotional case. I'm not, Evan said. I'm overhauling it because this is what leadership actually looks like. Another director slammed his hand on the table. Evan, you are risking everything we've built. No, Evan replied, voice iron. I am finally protecting what we built. Silence. He looked around the table. We either build a company that serves people, or we walk away and admit we only cared about power. Choose. Faces shifted, and one by one, they nodded. Not all gladly, but none dared oppose him. That night, Evan walked out of the tower and into the storm. His phone buzzed with headlines. Hail Dynamics launches AI heat map. Freezing families already receiving help. The world didn't know it yet, but everything had changed. And it didn't start with a CEO. It started with a boy holding a thermos in the cold. Snow drifted gently outside Cedar Flats the next evening, the storm finally breaking. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like breath, like the city itself had exhaled after holding something too heavy for too long. Inside apartment 2C, warmth glowed from every room, not just from heaters or thick blankets or repaired windows. The warmth tonight came from voices, laughter, life. For the first time in a long time, people visited each other without needing something. They came simply because they could. Lena sat at the small kitchen table, upright, steady, healing. In front of her sat a simple vase holding a single red winterberry branch that Lucy had brought. Hope, Lucy had said when she set it down. Every home needs something alive in it. Lena believed her. Micah was on the floor building something with Lucy, a cardboard map that stretched across the rug. They drew buildings and bridges and streets in red marker. Every few inches, a little blue circle was drawn with bold writing above it. Warm zone. Cold can't follow here. Micah connected them with long red yarn from a sewing kit Lena kept in a drawer. Lucy taped it down in neat lines. A network of safety, a web of protection, a promise stitched across cardboard. Evan walked in carrying a small toolbox, wiping frost from his coat. He paused in the doorway, not wanting to interrupt something sacred. He watched them for a moment before stepping inside. "What's this?" he asked. Micah didn't look up. "Mapping future warm zones." Evan's lips lifted. "Future warm zones?" "Yeah," Lucy said, matter of fact. "Places where nobody freezes, where people take care of each other." "Every city needs them," Micah added. "Every town, every block. Little places, Built by people, not systems. And maybe powered by both, Evan said. Micah nodded. Yeah, both. On the map, every warm zone circle had a name beneath it. Mrs. Hahn's apartment, Ruby's diner, the library basement, Bridge Shelter 12, laundry hallway, community church steps, places that had once been forgotten. Now they were being claimed. Micah, Evan said gently, I have something for you. Micah turned, cautious as always. Evan set a thin metal case on the table and opened it. Inside was an official Hale Dynamics identification badge, dark silver, engraved. Community Advisor, Micah James Carter. Hale Dynamics, Human Priority Operations. Micah stared at it. Lucy grinned. Looks real, she said. It is real, Evan replied, if you want it. Micah touched the badge like it might disappear. I don't know what to do with something like this. Use it, Evan said simply. Use it to make sure no one gets left behind. Micah looked at him. This isn't charity. No, Evan said. It's responsibility, and I'm giving it to the only person who reminded me what leadership means. Micah didn't smile, but his eyes lit with something rare. Purpose. He closed the case softly. He didn't thank Evan, because this wasn't something to thank someone for. This was a beginning. Evan reached into his coat once more and placed something else beside the metal case, a keyring. On it hung a single silver key. What's that? Micah asked. A future warm route center, Evan said. Vacant building just outside Cedar Flats. Needs work, needs people, needs a mission. He looked at the boy. You said warmth only matters if it reaches people. You ready to lead the first one? Micah stared at the key for a long moment. Then he reached out and lifted it. He didn't hold it like it belonged to him. He held it like it belonged to everyone. He would help. Lucy looked at him with soft admiration. What are you going to call it? Micah thought. He looked at the map he and Lucy had made. He looked at his mother sitting tall again. He looked at Evan, the man who followed a broken keychain and found a purpose instead. Then he said quietly, Home base. Evan nodded. Home base, it is. Outside, the snow had finally stopped. But the cold would always return. Good. So would they. Because warmth travels best hand to hand, person to person, family to family. And on that night, in a once-forgotten building in South Minneapolis, the first warm route was drawn, not by a billionaire, not by a charity, but by a boy who once guarded an empty thermos in the cold. Now, he carried something else, hope. And that was enough to change everything.